So somewhere my family members don't really know what I do even now. If anyone asks, they're just like, hey, ask him. We have no clue, but he's doing something good. So they are convinced because through the diverse experience, I've always shown that, it's not a monotonous job. I'm enjoying it and I'm doing well, I'm earning well. So that helped them convince throughout. But I think normally also design has become a huge thing now. Many families are sending their kids for career in art and design and all of these related courses.
I think it's definitely coming up, and even the time, like when you must have, entered this phase and the current era, not just the time period, but the whole technological thing as well. YouTube has made everything so, viable to people, like they can, just type on search things and learn, even design through YouTube.
I mean, that's absolutely a thing, because when we joined, we didn't have any point of reference. We didn't, I started my college in 2012, and at that point, there weren't much content creators putting all of the data and, videos on everything that, okay, what to expect, what not to expect. So we really joined our college with this thing, it's an adventure. We'll see whatever comes our way, we'll make the best of it. And the 5 years of my college, I actually treated it like I'm going to exploit everything out of this college, every opportunity that I get, and I want to make the max for myself. Right now, I'm seeing many students are opting out for it, but maybe for the wrong reasons.
Okay.
Because they think that let's go for design or art because we don't want to do engineering, we don't want to study. Idhar to art and design, it's more masti courses. Easy courses. That's really not the case, because over here there's so much more work that needs to be done. It's so much more, even the progression of teaching, the assignments and everything. We started with presentations. We were wearing full suits and we were presenting to clients in our college time as well. There were a lot of live projects. So, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes behind it. It's not just a full masti course.
Yeah, makes sense. Like being a student right now, I'll definitely, agree, because even before joining the college myself, even I was a bit confused. But I kind of relate to your story, as you said, just go in a direction and things will eventually follow up.
Yeah, I mean, that mindset really helps, because there were many students when I started off my college who were just going with the mindset ki, I want to do car designing and I want to work in this firm because it's their favorite brand, maybe Lamborghini or something, and there's that's the only thing I'll do. So with that narrow mentality, they never explored any other opportunity that came their way. For me, I knew I'm joining this course because I'll learn the tools that are needed. When I go outside, I don't have to design cars just because I've done the course. Right? I can apply it anywhere. So it's always about what learnings you're getting and how you are making the most of it.
Makes sense. And as you mentioned, you mentioned that you knew that you don't want to design cars. And as you said right now, certain people were just eyeing for that. And even from my experience, I have heard that in this particular industry, you don't primarily get what you admired for. Let's say I play all these different games, AAA titles, and I'm pretty sure that it won't be the very first job that I land onto. So how do you tackle that, and what's your say in this? Like in design field, you have to be, one with an open eye that you can, adapt to anything.
I think for that, one major thing is we should not be influenced by whatever we are seeing online. Yeah. Because that is building up a lot of wrong misconceptions for us. Online we see that, this is a cool job. Maybe someone has put up a video of their experience, and every single video that we see it's a small snippet of what actually the work goes behind it, right? So a lot of the students also get misconception, this will be easy, I'll enjoy, I'll have a really good time. Even when it comes to expectations for internships or jobs, that when you're going into the industry, what I will do, same thing happens. When I started off, I was not looking at the idea that I really want to go abroad, I want to work in a big studio, and I want to settle outside. These are not the things that drive me personally. So I never felt that pull. I've seen really good students, but they have opted for jobs just because they want to satisfy that itch. I want to go abroad. So they'll take any job, even if it helps them grow or not, but they'll still go. It's good exposure. I'll probably stay 6 months in some foreign country. I'll experience the life. But professionally, it just doesn't challenge them as much. always be selfish when it comes to internships and your first experiences in the industry. Even if you're not getting paid as much, still opt for the opportunity where you can actually do great. My first internship, like I was in Mumbai, my internship I was getting 14,000, my rent was 16,000.
It didn't cover the rent.
It didn't even cover the rent. So I didn't go with the thinking, okay, I need to start saving right now, or I need to at least make ends meet. Even if I was paying a little bit through my pocket, through my savings, or my parents were helping me out at that time, I still opted for that option. So keeping those preconceived notions and mindsets ki मेरे को तो भारी जाना है and I really want to only be invested in big studios, I think that's not really helpful. Having that open mind really helps.
Yeah, so basically to sum it up, your say is not to have preconceived notion or like way too, ambitious thoughts.
Yes.
And just going with the flow and, having that mindset to just learn.
And no expectations.
No expectations at all.
No expectations at all. Like whatever will happen, it will still be like you need to look at it as a win-win scenario.
Okay.
Like either it will tell you this is yes the work I want to do, or it will tell you okay no I don't like this work, I don't want to do. Either way it's a win-win scenario. You learned something.
But what's that thin line between the dream, ambition and reality? How does one counter that or tackle that? Let's say
that's a really good question. I mean, your dream and ambitions, like it doesn't have to be static. That's the way I think about life, right? As you progress, you change. Your expectations change, your ambitions change.
Definitely.
Situations in your family change, right? There are many factors that can influence you to do something and not do something. I've currently in the last few years, I've had lots of job offers abroad, opportunities to settle abroad, but I cannot opt for that right now because medical issues at my place, my parents not well, and there are many things that come up. So I mean obviously there are many things, so your ambitions and expectations, your dreams also need to keep on adapting. It cannot stay static. You cannot have that rigid mindset.
They must be linked to the reality.
They should evolve. Evolve with time.
And so like you just mentioned, you got job opportunities from abroad, and even before that, people having this mindset कि नहीं मुझे तो बाहर जाना है, I want to have that experience. So what do you think really makes a person think that when the preconceived notion of people having this the standard of lifestyle that's better outside than India, so why do you think people want to go and outside?
It's a fascination right now because we always want to do what everyone else wants to do. We connect our worth to it. Like somewhere if all of your friends in your batch are going abroad and they are getting jobs abroad, and if you want to work, like maybe you get a better opportunity in India, but still somewhere that's going to sting that everyone else went abroad but I didn't. So it's always that environment you put yourself in, right, that starts to affect you and your expectations. Somewhere I've seen there's so many students I've given recommendation letters to in the last 5 years of being a professor. I ask them one simple question: why do you want to go abroad? They don't have an answer. They really don't know. They just want to go out. It's a fascination, and they're never able to put it, okay, this is my reasoning for going out. It's not even personal, it's not even professional or anything. It's just going with the flow because everyone's doing it, I want to do it.
Now that you have mentioned it, it actually makes sense. Like if you'll ask me right now, even I won't have an answer. Like obviously I would love to go abroad and stay there, but there's no actual answer to it. Maybe the fact that we idealize or look up to the standard of living, or even the way that outside is being portrayed in different medias, I think it's always exaggerated. And
I mean there are many things that you realize with age and experience that earlier it's just the fascination, big company, living or working in London or Germany or some big city in Europe, and what I'll just do the same thing what everyone on Instagram is doing, go on bars, go on treks, click some good photos, show that I have life experience, right? I mean, but as a professional, like how much does it help one? It rarely happens, and people rarely think about it.
Okay, so last point to this, India versus foreign debate. Just two quick pointers for all the students who are watching. Why should they want to go, or benefits of going abroad versus benefits of staying at our homeland?
Okay, that's a good question. I mean, currently, if you ask, like, my answer would have been different probably a few years before. But currently, the situation outside, the markets and everything, the economy is really volatile. The opportunities are not like earlier, early 2000s when people were going abroad. That's because actually, genuinely, the opportunities and exposure outside was good.
And does this also come into, like, obviously it must, the currency difference that you have, dollar over...
It really doesn't. Like, people think about it that, see, there is this thing, like, even if you're earning 40, 50 lakhs outside, right, when you look at the cost of living and everything, there is something called as PPI index, right, pay parity. I'm not sure the full form of it, but basically, even if you're earning, let's say, 40 or 50 lakhs in London, if you compare that to the cost of living in India, it's equivalent to a 12 lakh package. That's it. So we don't take into consideration everyday things because all the resources to stay over there. Over here we are groomed to and accustomed to a way of living. Outside you have to be constrained in that. When I got the opportunity in my graduation jury, I got two offers. One was in LA, California, and another one was in Europe. And I got the offers. I was super happy. I'm like, oh, everyone's going. Then I actually sat down and I thought about it. And there's so much restrictions, like there's no room to grow. When you're in a different city, you have to follow and abide by the rules, by the conditions of your visa. And there's so many other factors to consider. And if you're thinking about all of that, how will you professionally grow? Starting off your career and you're not thinking about what I want to do, what work is there. You're more concerned about what my visa allows me to do. Oh, I need to do this bank requirement. And most of the students, most of my batchmates who actually went out abroad, they dealt with these issues more than anything. Like just if you take healthcare or basic living or groceries and all of that, they were so much of time they were wasting in that out of 24 hours. Right? They barely had any time to actually grow. Whereas I got the opportunity to go out, I chose to stay and start as an independent consultant. That's how I started off.
It's just like another burden at your back.
I mean, I just wanted to work. I wanted to experience and I wanted to give as much time in my 24 hours to growth. And that comes when you're not focused on traveling back and forth, when you're not focused too much on how my bank and visa and travel and this and that. Right? So that's the main misconception that people have, that outside life is easy. It's not. It's Makes as sense. Difficult. Like, because you're adjusting to a whole new ecosystem and their rules. Over here in India, you know the rules.
It's much more easier.
It's much more easier. It's much more comfortable. And obviously, currently, if you look at the situation, the opportunities in the market, India is the place to be. Opportunities are going to grow. Somewhere, I do feel the difference, the con of this, there is a difference in ideology. Because that's something I have struggled with a lot. So there was, I worked in design fiction. And design fiction, conceptual design is not a big thing in Indian market. Because the whole design mentality, methodology comes from big institutes like NID, right? And they have more of a proof of concept in designing for now and a different mindset. And conceptual speculative work is not something that people look at, it's frowned upon. Outside, the same work gets so much prominence. You look at projects like NEOM, the 170 kilometer long city in a line in Saudi Arabia. Like, people are working on such conceptual projects in Dubai, in Middle East, in you look at some of these stadiums and all that are coming up now, even in US, right? So that there's a lot more conceptual work that people do work at. MIT labs you look at. In India, it doesn't happen. That was one very big struggle that I had even in my college time. That pushed me sort of to not just stick into designing cars, but go beyond and work on ecosystems.
So then, as you mentioned, these things are not really valued or are scarce in India, and you are a part of this profession, then isn't it a bit tough to land up a job being in this profession, as it's not valued?
That was the challenge that I was willing to take in, because I knew I wanted to explore here. So I'll tell you a good story. My bachelor's thesis that I did, it was a fairly conceptual project. I worked on an entire ecosystem and how exactly, so To simplify it, my thesis was to reimagine the transportation system in binary formats, and different permutation combination of binary elements give you a different transportation method, right? And when I presented that, half of the faculties didn't understand it. Most of them said, what a nonsense you're working on, and this is not going to be good. And they failed me in my thesis. The same thesis that my college failed me in won 4 global awards. The same thing. And that's when the college were forced to change my grade. The same project, when I sent it outside, the college didn't even shortlist my project for Core 77 and all these red dot, these awards that keep on happening. They didn't even shortlist that. I sent it as an individual and my project won. That's when I understood that, I'm in this closed ecosystem in India. Just because people here are not talking about this, that doesn't mean it actually is not happening. It's a huge topic. Outside, that work was so much appreciated. I went to conference, I was invited to a conference in LA to receive an award for that same thesis, and people over there, they knew the work, they knew the concept that I was exploring, and they are talking to me about it. It was such a culture shock that people are working on this, and in the Indian education system, for me, everyone is saying no, conceptual is bad. So that's what it pushed me, that I'm on the right track, but I'm a little early in the Indian market, and that's the common feedback that even I have got. It's a struggle, yes, because I have to spend a lot of time convincing the Indian clients that this is important. Right now, it's been a slightly more easier because post-COVID, people have seen that thing that, you need to explore hypotheticals. Many studios, many services and products, they were not ready to see, okay, now how we'll survive. We're in a lockdown. Their entire structure was not based on that. So post that, we have seen a rise in strategic foresight jobs, in innovation jobs, and speculative thinking in general. People are considering it now.
So do you think post pandemic it helped things out in this particular industry that broadened the Indian audience's mind?
I mean, it's a good start, and I went into the whole academic scene at the right time. I mean, it was a year before COVID, but I went with the same intent that, if you want to introduce this, I cannot directly just go into the industry and say I'm doing this and someone's going to just take a risk on me. Yes, it'll happen. I introduced it in colleges because if I want to put a new ideology, it starts from college. Students are going to think about it. It becomes a couple of successful projects in the courses and curriculums. Other faculties talk about it. They give their 2 cents about it. So it grows organically within in an academic structure. So I started off with teaching and all because of that.
So
I didn't have, in a simple way, I didn't have a place. I made my own place. That I want to work in futurism. In India, there isn't. So let me carve out my own space in the market.
And in the process, educating whoever you come across in the field.
I mean, at least people will start talking about it, because if no one's talking about it, where do you start the dialogue? Starts in colleges, starts with young creatives when they start asking these questions.
Makes sense, absolutely. So coming to your job profile itself, what has been the most interesting project you have dealt with, and to the contrary, what has been one of the most boring ones that you have faced?
That list keeps on changing, because I am in this mindset of constantly evolving, that at the moment if I think this project, it's so amazing that I'm doing, 6 months down the line I'll absolutely hate it. I'll be like, no, this was such horrible work, how can I even present it to someone? So that happened with me a lot of the times. Few of the ones that I really enjoyed doing, one was with the International Civil Aviation Organization in Montreal. So they approached me so I was in touch with Charles Bombardier, and he actually helped me get in, be a part of that project. And we published a graphic novel called Future of Aviation. And that was a graphic novel collection of 5-6 stories on how in the next 10-20 years we can see the aviation industry changing, from the experience at airports to the experience of checking-ins to traveling alone, the kids traveling somewhere, maybe how aviation assets will talk to each other in natural calamities.
Makes sense. And the uprise of drones.
Yes,
itself,
so that
I
was a
think.
very interesting project. I enjoyed every part of it. One of the most, I wouldn't say
So
boring.
before coming to that, like in this particular project that you enjoyed, aviation and stuff, what was your role in this? Was it, visualizing stuff, or was it speculating stuff?
So my role was to visualize the ideas. We brainstormed, we did the R&D, we came up with the scenarios that okay, this is how aviation assets like by themselves will communicate with each other in health emergencies, in disaster situations and all of that. So that was, it was a teamwork. But what I primarily, the entire visualization and drafting the whole graphic novel, that was my primary job.
Okay.
Yeah, but as a collective team, we did work on the R&D.
There was a group effort, but
It was a group effort, but
focus.
the primary job was to make the graphic novel.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and
Coming to the most boring one.
the boring one, I wouldn't. It was also interesting in its way. Boring only because it was too lengthy. So I was. This is when the whole crypto boom was happening.
Okay.
There was a firm in Germany called Karma Labs, and they needed a set of NFTs made. So I helped them come up with 5 series of NFTs, and there was just basic stuff, basic layers, and different permutation combination gives you different NFTs. So we ended up creating around 5,000 NFTs. So it was a very repetitive work, and that repetition after a point, like, was interesting in the first week, and slowly with every passing week, it was like, okay, now this is getting boring. I really want this project to end.
Must have been.
It was the first and the only
tedious.
time that happened. Otherwise, most of my other projects have always been a fun experience.
So coming to this, like you mentioned 6 months and 5,000, if I am correct, of these NFTs. What's a typical duration that you spend time on in one project?
It always depends. So I never work on one project at one time.
Okay.
That's just the way I work. I like at any given point I'm working in 2-3 different places with 2-3 different clients. Because if you tell me that this whole week you're going to do this 9 to 5, you're going to work on this, that's where my energy totally goes down. I need to have that autonomy to switch between different creative endeavors. So I do keep my deadlines also according to that. Like when I'm engaging in a project, so there will be one project for 3 months, one project for 6 months, and simultaneously I'll run them. So in a week I'll dedicate only a few hours. That's how initially as a consultant, that works best in your favor. So even at the moment, I am engaged with 2 universities. I am doing a project with a client in Melbourne, and then I'm working on my own ventures also with my elder sibling. But try and find a good balance of it.
But doesn't that distract you? Like personally, my ideology is if I'm working on something, what I technically want to do is get done with it and then move on to the next one. And while I'm doing that particular thing, I'm just focused on that and giving in my 100%.
I was into that in my college days, but I had a really good professor who really brought this to my attention, because when I would get into a zone, right, I would fall in love with my artwork. Once I fall in love with the artwork and I was just like, okay, this is perfect, I will stop seeing the gaps and I would not work on that. This helps me, this autonomy helps me when I shift. Like in a week, if I'm working on a project for 2 days, I take a day off, work on something else. I revisit it, then I'll see the problems that I was not seeing the other day. That helps my personal creative process, so I find it more easy. It's just a little difficult also, like even for you right now, because you're in a college setup, so it's definitely module based planning and everything, so you do end up spending all of your time on one project at a single time. But when you go into a studio or even in the industry when you're working, that will rarely happen, because your responsibilities will be a couple of them and you will have very limited time. So you yourself have to plan it out that, okay, today I'm going to cover this up of this project, second project, I'll cover it up over here. So it does help having a good break, a creative break, and revisiting what you have done. I feel it's necessary, and I try and introduce that also in most of my courses.
Makes sense. Like something could work for someone and might not for the other. So let's pivoting to a different topic. Like, what's the state of the industry, so to say? Like the current scenario
in the gaming industry or the industrial design industry?
So let's take the question this way. What do you think is the current scenario in terms of difference between the gaming industry and the cinema industry? Because there have been a lot of debate, the gaming industry is outshining the movie industry in terms of numbers.
That is, see, when you view it from a numbers point of view, that will always happen because the way we consume media is different, right? With the whole COVID thing that affected people not going to theaters, and also the whole film industry was affected through an external factor that was beyond anyone's control. Whereas being home and just playing and all, so I would say it's just how we consume that medium that is always there. But currently, if you look at the curve, I think it's in a booming stage because a lot more people are seeing that. I started chasing the convergence of design fiction and industrial design, and I was the first one in India to work on that. And at that point I was way too early when I started it off, but right now people are seeing the importance of it with the advent of metaverse, virtual realities, augmented reality. These are sort of blurring the boundaries and the skill sets also that you need. So even if you have not studied that completely, you can still work on it because the skill set is the same. Right? So that way it's a very good time to actually be in this industry because you can just go through a foundation course in gaming or entertainment design. You can end up working for a studio that is working on AR applications. Even in a firm like Aether Energy or some other these EV startups that are coming up, even they will have their own experiences, virtual reality experiences. So there is a lot to collaborate right now.
So it's a good time to be in the industry, and you can venture off between the movie industry and the gaming industry.
Yeah, I mean, you need to come with an open mindset. If you're coming with the mindset that I'm just going to design games and that's only reason I'm coming, you're going to have a tough time. But if you come with the intention that okay, I'm going to learn these skills, I'm going to apply these skills, at that point you will have a lot more freedom and I mean so many opportunities coming in.
Makes sense. So like you just mentioned the term AI, and I'm pretty sure as a student and all of those who are watching, there's this like notion that AI will take over the jobs and stuff, and being a design futurist and you speculate quite a lot of things and different trends. What is your take on this? What will be the state of AI in the coming 5 to 10 years?
See, AI is here to stay for sure, and AI will become a part. Only thing is that the way it's being introduced is not right, because it's being introduced as a trend thing that oh yes, you have to be a part of it, otherwise like the marketing I would say of AI is not correct, because the way tools were introduced 10 years 20 years before, they were told in such a manner that this will help you do a lot more. Right now it's being introduced as okay, this will cut your job in half. You won't have to work as hard, you won't have to work as much, and that I think is a wrong way, because even with students I've already seen when mid journey and all of these AI softwares have come up, there is a lot of skipping of basics because they're like, oh easy, I can do it with this tool. Photoshop has come up with generative fill, and that students are just exploiting, and somewhere that there is so much of skipping that is happening. Like think about it, 20 years ago there was no internet, right? People were still creating, people were still innovating. They did not have any reference. 10 years later, Google came up, Pinterest came up, and all of these platforms came up. We started seeing a lot of examples. Students did not innovate. They mimicked whatever was online. Right? Because they didn't, whenever you put a problem in front of them, they'll Google something which resembles it.
They had the luxury to
do it. Things. 20 years ago, that was not the option. So obviously, in terms of fundamentals and skills, we will see a decline. Our thinking capacity will go down, because rather than figuring out our problems, we will rely on AI to do a lot of things. So that is a major trend which I see. And in education, AI might be introduced in the industry, that's different, but at least in education, we need to introduce it in a right manner. We need to have a right set of guidelines to use AI, so that we are not compromising the thinking ability, the critical thinking abilities of
the creativity.
They should not totally rely onto it. Like with 3D right now, even in your batch, we have seen a couple of examples that students, for visualization, they are relying too much on 3D that 3D will take care of everything, right? We didn't have that option at that time. So we learned actually by doing digital painting and manually doing it. People even before us were more talented because they did it through traditional mediums.
The realism
Kind of goes away. We are not able to see our observation skills, how well we see something and be able to replicate it. When you do it traditionally, it's taking the hard way, but you learn a lot more. With AI, you might achieve the result quickly, but that observation doesn't happen.
The mindset will really, change.
Yes.
And so coming to this, we're talking about future. One of the things, I don't know, it's really off topic, but the fact that, the generational gap. In our generation, we didn't have, these technological advancement, mobile phones and stuff. But in the current generation, small kids are using mobile phones and stuff. So what's your take on that?
I mean, honestly, I don't really like it. It is helpful for sure. But again, I mean, so much the same thing, coming back to the same thing, that our ability to think is kind of diminishing. We take away, I'll give you a personal story example from this. So this is 1996 or 7 or something, and I was 4-5 years old, very small. And at that point, I was traveling with my parents, and that's the first memory that I have with my parents. Our car broke down in the middle of nowhere. There was like trees all over, and we are like stuck. There was no phone. There was no way to contact anyone. No way you can tell live location, ki I'm here, come and get me. But still we came out of it, right? Asked someone for a lift, went to the nearest town, contacted some guy, took the jeep, came back, then took the car, attached it and went. No one at the home, like my elder siblings were alone at home at that point. We could not even contact and tell them why we are late. That was the thing. Now, even if you take internet away, everyone starts to panic. So your ability to deal with things also changes. And that's a trend we are already seeing with the kids. My niece and my nephew, they are 2 and 5 in age. And they won't eat food unless Peppa Pig is on.
Right? That's the thing with every kid.
So it's good, it's helpful, but smartphones are sort of putting so much of restriction that we won't be able to do soon. We won't be able to do normal things that 10-20 years ago people would have done normally. That's why we are seeing so many people dealing with anxiety, because anytime you see WhatsApp is down or Instagram is down, people are having panic attacks and they cannot access their social life. They're constantly overthinking, and so many different mental issues are coming up.
Like the fact that you're so dependent on it, like
dependent.
You feel like
that's the word I was looking for.
The itch, like even in normal scenarios, the itch to just grab your phone and look kuch notification aaye ya nahi, like it has really taken over, so to say, technology.
And not just from that, I mean also because we have so many examples online through these platforms, be it on your smartphone or all these Behance and Pinterest, and somewhere we also put a cap on our benchmark, artificial benchmark on our skill set. Like we make, even if it's good, we will still compare it to what we have seen online, and then we'll be like, no, it's not good.
I think that's what worked in the previous generation. They didn't have anything to look forward to, so it was just their mind that was truly working. Because abhi bhi, if you are given a brief, the first thing that you do is not really think about it, but just type it up on Pinterest and see the visuals. That drives your...
Yes, that is the primary reason that I even started with design fiction and industrial design.
Because there's nothing to look.
Because people in earlier, like if you look at 1950s and 60s, people were innovating so much more than they are doing today. If you look at science fiction works from 1950s, writers like Isaac Asimov, H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, right? There was George Orwell. Like these people in 1950s and 60s, the books they have written, the concepts they have explored, people are innovating on that. You look at you look at innovations happening, FaceTime and all of these things. First time FaceTime and all of, like a reference to it, a visual reference to it, where it came from, science fiction, movies and cartoons. Majority of the innovation also that is happening. Last week the big thing was there where scientists are working on warp drive. Right? Warp drive didn't exist. There was no science behind it. That was an idea which came from Star Wars and all of these, that, you know, interstellar travel, traveling so fast. And then they went behind that idea generated through science fiction. Right? So you need people, that sort of visionaries, which don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Like we don't, if you look at those videos of people in the 60s and 70s imagining how the future is going to be, they were able to think of so much. You ask anyone today, we won't be able to give examples beyond what we see in movies.
Yeah. But it also has to do with the fact that the pace at which, you know, the technology is growing. Like back then people were able to, you know, really visualize something that's, you know, really bizarre.
Even that point, technology was catching up quickly.
But
there's only,
I think as compared to right now.
No, it was. You see, if the timeline you see when flight was discovered to people reaching the moon is barely 30-40 years or something like that.
Okay, makes sense.
Right?
Like
So
my view might be different.
I mean, we don't have that much experience and knowledge also. Like majority of the things is just assumptions. We think that, oh, that time probably this would have been happening, because we just read part of that information online and we don't understand what actually went behind it. So there are some ideologies and some concepts of design fiction and speculative which were very prominent in the 60s and 70s. People are not talking about it as much now. So my inspiration sort of came from there, and that's why I wanted to explore the convergence of design fiction and industrial design.
So what would be your, you know, advice or direction for all the viewers that are watching, you know, all the young designers, that how do you separate yourself from what's already existing? Like how can you use all these app Pinterest to the least and, you know, like still make something good out?
I think the way to go about this is everyone needs to be selfish and understand that if you want to stand out in this industry, there needs to be individuality. Colleges will teach you 10 basic things which are required. If everyone is just doing those 10 basic things, then you're not different, because everyone knows it. If there are 10 students in a batch, they will all do the same assignments that are given.
Yeah.
So how do you set yourself different is figuring out your individuality in design. So that people one day might be able to, it can be through visual sense, your aesthetics, your styling, maybe a different way of representation of work, maybe different way of research, the way you collect data, the way you synthesize data, that can be different. But everyone needs to find their own niche that sets them apart. What set me apart from the rest of my batch? Everyone was working in solutions and designing for today. They all went into production jobs designing for today. I was the only one in my batch that was working for 10 years, 20 years ahead. That became my signature. So whenever there was a jury or something, and even if there's an artwork somewhere, people look at it and they'll just instantly connect. This is Akash's work.
Because you develop that niche.
Yes, so
quite early.
That is necessary, that mindset is necessary, that with all of these platforms, it's much easier now for you to figure out what's your individual style. And that's what every student should be aiming for, even you. You should be aiming for how you kind of visualize world building, in character design, and how you're not doing the same thing what everyone is doing. We are not it worked with the engineering college. Like a checklist, we'll teach the students these 5 things, and you can go, you can do the work, you can do the job. With creatives, it's different. You need to set yourself apart, and you need to find some individuality in your design process, in your art process.
Yeah, so like art process, right? So what do you think your typical approach to a project is? Let's say, like, for instance, the government of India gives you a project on, speculating how auto rickshaw might be, 10 years down the line. So what will be your initial thought process, and like take us through what steps you will, follow to reach to an outcome?
See, when you ask that question, right, there are things like, if I'm designing something for tomorrow, so why do we even put that notion ki auto rickshaw for tomorrow? Because somewhere we are restricting ki travel will still be the same 20 years down the line. What if the meaning of travel changes? Yeah. What if rather than personal ownership, it becomes shared travel, right? Or happens the other way, right? So we need to look at and ask the big questions. So to answer your question, there was this project that I did, and the only thing that was given for us was ki make something, a compact vehicle for 2030. everyone went into making compact vehicle. Everyone started designing some sort of a Mini Cooper or a small one-seater car. Right? That is not what I went for. I first understood, okay, why did they say compact? What does compact mean? What does it mean today?
Yeah.
Will compact mean the same thing 20 years down the line? If you look at mobile phones, when those big geometry box like telephones were there, that was compact for that time. And then in early 2000s, we got the Nokia 1100. That became compact for its time. Now we are seeing same thing with CDs and all of that.
Yeah.
Hard disk and hard drives, they were compact in it. That meant different.
Yeah.
Now even a small micro SD can have 1 TB data. So the meaning of compact changes. So you need to figure out what that meaning would be. So if it's designing auto rickshaw for tomorrow or 20 years down the line, first I'll think, what does auto rickshaw do?
Yeah.
It's close by travel. Will that travel be the same? Will we even need it? How will that evolve? That need for travel. So you look at that, you look at the big picture. You don't just look at another design or another cosmetic beautification of auto rickshaw. That I'll put some good headlights onto it, a good surface treatment, maybe some good materials.
It might be levitating, neon lights and stuff.
And that is what separates designers from futurists. That we are not looking at creating the next auto rickshaw. We're looking at the question: will there even be auto rickshaws in the future? Will we need auto rickshaws, or what will auto rickshaw transform into?
So like from what I was able to gather, it's the fact that you break it out to the most basic essence, not jumping to auto rickshaw mila hai, usko how do you take forward?
You need to look at the big picture. Like what if autonomous driving sort of comes into place?
Yeah.
It will change the architecture of auto rickshaw. There will not be a driver.
Yeah.
So are we just going to make people just sitting on, that in that movie Wall-E?
Yeah.
People sitting on chairs and they are going. Is that going to be the auto rickshaw for tomorrow? So you need to look at the big picture, not just look at, making the best version of what already exists.
Yeah, makes sense. And so like currently we talked about so much of, creative thinking, design process, finding your own niche. So what will be that advice that you want to give to, someone who is just starting off in design, and what would be some of the myths that are, there in design? Like, as you mentioned, those 60-second reels, they just show you the finished products in just 60 seconds, and that creates a sense of easiness that isne bhi kar rakha hai, what will be that challenging that's stopping me from doing it? So how would you put forth to whoever's aspiring to join the art industry or the design industry? What should they expect out of it, and what should be their mindset?
I think somewhere I answered this question earlier also. When they're coming to the industry, especially gaming industry, they need to look at just the skill sets that they're going to pick up from colleges. Right? What exactly is the curriculum? What skill sets they will be learning? What tools and softwares are they going to master when they're going to be here? And how they utilize it, that they need to figure out by themselves. Not go forward with what we are seeing online, because online many people are doing that. Most of my students, they haven't even cleared their bachelor's or master's, and they are trying to become influencers on Instagram. Right? They'll cover up just a small part of a big process. They'll see something online, people in 60 seconds or 90 seconds making a beautiful art piece. They're like, oh, I can also do that. And they'll spend all of their energy into that myth and misconception. I will also do the same thing, and every single day I'm posting 4 times a day. And that whole, motivation videos and how they talk about if you want to grow your Instagram. They look at that and they just keep spending their energy in the wrong place.
Yeah.
So biggest thing for all aspirants would be find the right inspiration, find the right place you spend your energy on. Don't dive into this whole, because everyone is doing it, I want to do it. Like there was one guy that started off that, because that's what in the social media sphere right now. One guy, that MBA chai wala, started off. Now there's every single day some guy who wants to make chai or vada pav or something, and everyone is jumping at it. So it's like sheep, we're just following after one another. That needs to stop. Because that's sort of what is ruining also even for people who are coming into design and art, because they just look at one person doing something, or they look at online someone has done something, they just want to copy it. They're not looking at an individual experience, that how this is going to be different for me. I could have very well gone to a studio and worked 9 to 5. I could have done that job anywhere. I had opportunities to move abroad. But because I wanted to find my individual self and my personal self-expression, that is why I took the hard way.
Yeah.
I went into automotive, got into entertainment design, I became a professor. And this is one of the things I'm also very proud of, that, I never sat even in a single class for filmmaking, animation or 3D and all of that creation. Never I sat in a single classroom, attended a course, even like a crash course or online course or something. Never did. Yeah. I learned everything on the job by directly engaging in those projects. And then when VFS, which is one of Vancouver Film School, one of the premier film schools, when they came to India, I was part of the establishing team. Right? So you need to find, like, it's not what everyone is doing that's going to get you success, recognition. You can also get it by, finding your own way, making your own way.
Taking the tougher route or, finding your own path and stuff.
I mean, obviously it's going to feel little off for sure, because you'll question yourself quite a lot. You will compare yourself quite a lot because we are more invested in other people's life with social media.
I think comparison, like in general, is a thing, but I would say in design field or in terms of student, it's present quite heftily.
Are we getting too philosophical with the answers?
I think. But so like moving to more questions that might help someone. What is it like someone who is just entering the design industry? Really fresh, he doesn't or she doesn't have any expertise or exposure to art itself, because in most of the cases people who do join this industry are the ones the childhood se art karte aa rahe. They used to see Pokemon dekha, used to drew that or something like that. But there are people who are just joining in fresh. So is it an advantage for them that they don't really have a benchmark or expectation?
It is a big advantage. It is a big advantage. Some of the people that I've worked with, that I've seen, like, their understanding of concepts and application. So happened with a couple of people that were in engineering, and after completing first or second year of engineering, they made the shift to design. And they entered without the knowledge of being able to sketch, but they developed the problem solving foundation which engineering teaches. Right? That mindset was there, so they were able to progress way faster than the students who joined in first year. Their sketching improved faster, their rendering improved faster, their visualization skills, their research skills, their application. So all of those people I'm still in touch with, like from my batch, who made the shift from engineering to design, and their progression has always been an inspiration to me. Like, you learn from your peers also, and they actually are some of the people that I've learned from over the years, the way they have progressed, the way they have skilled up. So I think even for the new aspirants that are joining in, it doesn't matter if you have been sketching for a long time, it doesn't matter if you don't know how to sketch, you can still do this, because I say that sketching is a language. Okay, you speak English, there's a Britisher who speaks English. You might not be as fluent, your vocabulary might not be as good as him. That doesn't mean you don't know how to speak, right? It's just fluency in that language. Sketching is the same thing, right? Think of it as a tool, right? Think of it like that. It's just going to help you communicate better. It's just going to help you speak fluently through your visualizations. And that's a skill that can be improved. That's a skill, even if you don't have it, you can improve it.
Portraying your thoughts. So
it's communication in the end.
So it's like open to everyone. It's not just stereotypical or एक set of people. Anyone can join in the design industry.
It's not at all for people who are just only sketching. It's also for people who have never sketched at all. Even they can pick this up, because the basics and the foundations that are needed, that are actually very, very important.
So coming to sketching, like the typical hand drawing and traditional stuff, what's the current scenario of traditional art in the industry? Like, do people still use pen and paper for doing concept art, or do they directly switch off?
It's actually, we've seen a decline, and I think I've seen with you also, like, because you have an iPad, for most of your ideation, that's what you jump for. It's the most convenient thing for you, right? I prefer traditional mediums still. And the learnings that can happen in traditional mediums, you cannot compare it with digital at all. So definitely there is a decline because people are more fascinated with tools and softwares and all the gizmos that are available right now. But the learning happens in traditional. There's one thing which I learned the hard way. I never took fine art course in school. I had the option of either taking sports or fine arts. I chose sports because all of my friends were choosing sports and I wanted to play, right? And I felt in the second or third year that, oh, if I had taken fine arts, so many basics, color theory, right? Being able to replicate and observation skills could have been improved. That I probably spent time in my college improving. That could have been already improved. Maybe my first and second year could have been way more better.
Makes sense.
Right? So traditional skills always are going to be far more superior than digital skills.
And even if you just know traditional skills, you can obviously brush them off, in the digital medium as well. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to 2D drawing on digital, you are still sketching and using a stylus. So it's not altogether.
It is.
Different.
See, we have felt this. Like we learned so much into learning how to render things, how to visualize things, so many lengthy classes and assignments of building up that foundation and going through the process, and by the time we clear it, that thing is obsolete. People are just skipping that and directly you can now sketch, put it on Viscom platform and it will give you a render. So digital, that is what is happening. You need to constantly keep on updating yourself. If you're proficient in a software today, does not mean that's going to help you 5 years down the line. 5 years down the line, the whole dynamic can change. Maybe that software becomes obsolete.
Makes sense. Anything could happen.
Anything can happen, right? The industry is progressing that way.
Yeah. And so before we wind this up, I wanted to ask this one question because I found it in your portfolio or CV, and it quite struck me off that you have a design patent under your belt. So would you want to elaborate on that?
That patent is actually a fruit of one of my courses. So I was leading the digital fabrication department in ISDI Parsons College, Mumbai.
Digital fabrication,
which is primarily dealing with 3D printing, CNC and all of these tools. So I was teaching students how to use 3D printers to build prototypes for your products, your designs, your ideas. Not just visualize them as paintings, but actually make workable prototypes. So that course, one of my students presented and she built this sort of a portable refrigeration solution for soda cans.
Okay.
And that solution was so innovative that, so she did that. It was a 6 months project that she did under my mentorship. And the end result was so promising that we actually, as a mentor, we filed a
patent for her.
I was a mentor for her, and in her name we filed the patent.
That sounds really interesting.
It was. Sometimes the outcomes of these classes and unconventional practices is really, really amazing. I've had students who have derived a whole visual language, not taking influence from anywhere else, but they studied the script, Arabic script, and how the letters are, and they analyzed and understood it and created a visual language out of it. Like sometimes students come up with things that I am like, wow, I can learn from this. Right? So
what's the most innovative thing that you have seen coming out of a student? You have quite a hefty experience in the teaching field now. What's that one thing that got you by surprise? Wow, aisa bhi kuch
these were the two projects actually, the patent and the student that actually, because those are concepts that even I would never approach, that even I would never touch or even think about exploring that way. So this student, for a month, she understood the Arabic language, how you write it, how the characters are. Like she did not go for finding an inspiration on Pinterest. She observed something, experienced something, made her own insights, and then came up with the visual language and then designed a product around it. And that entire concept, the work, the process was so fresh. And it was something that honestly I would never go for. That's why I was impressed. And that's one of the most interesting things students have done. But all of them have been creating. So, because some of these conceptual concepts, when I introduce in the class, I started the course also with a very selfish motive, because I would introduce a concept, there'll be 30-40 students, and to a same problem I would get 30-40 unique opinions, and that has helped me a lot with my own personal research and strategic foresight and futurism.
It must be interesting, you know, because people must be coming up with really bizarre, you know, out of the world ideas. So I think it must be always fun.
It is needed also, because right now if we see like there was a point when Indian cars, you can look at a car and identify this is an Indian car, this is a German car, this is a British car, this is an Italian car, because the languages were like that. Right now everything looks the same, like Indian cars or anything you say, they all look exactly the same. We have lost individuality. Why? Because there's a sort of a generalization or standardization happening across, even with aesthetics. You look at Indian futuristic aesthetics, people will not be able to tell you.
Indian punk.
Indian punk or anything, like people are not able to visualize. You talk about India in future to anyone, they still won't get that image of snake charmers and the pagadis and turbans out of their head, right? So somewhere we need to derive new visual languages.
And the fact that I think most of the people really confuse themselves when it comes to, you know, designing for the future. Like your approach or methodology really sounds like, it's something viable. You're actually solving a problem, wherein most of the youth, I would say, treat this as, you know, cyberpunk, neon, like just the visual appeal of it. So I think that's something.
It is
there's a
interesting,
blurring line between.
That's actually one of the things that I really want to work in. Black Panther came out and Afrofuturism became a huge thing. Before that, if you talk to anyone about Africa, they thought of it as
very primitive tribal
people. Right, but all of a sudden that movie came out and suddenly Africa is cool. Their aesthetic is cool, right? So they came up with a very nice visual aesthetic. So we do need to update our Indian aesthetic. We need to come up with the future Indian aesthetic.
Power of movies, it's great. Like it can, you know, make a difference in day and night. So sir, we'll wind this up. This just one thing, like your advice to anyone who is watching, who want to join this field. Any expectations or any last advice? I know I've asked this quite a lot of times now, but that's how we'll wind up.
My last advice to everyone is going to be that right now we have so much of platforms available. Do not rely on just colleges or crash courses for your personal development. Majority of the things that I am proficient in now after college, nobody taught me. I'm self-taught in all of those things, in many softwares, in many design methodologies, even creating my own design methodologies. So I want everyone to come with that mindset that, you know, that they need to be ambitious. They need to be curious. They cannot just be like, wait for spoon feeding to happen that, okay, teach me these 5 concepts and I'll be a designer. That's not going to happen. So do come with that drive and
be open-minded.
Be open-minded.
Curiosity.
Be open-minded.
All this stuff. So I think that's the end. And thank you so much, sir, for like taking out time. And it was really fun for me.
Thank you so much for inviting me.